What's good, friends list? Episode 125 of the Gamecast coming at you. It's official. In a surprise move, 343 Industries hasn't delayed, but shadow dropped early the release of Halo Infinite's multiplayer mode. That means you can jump in right now and rack up those overkills for free on Xbox and PC. That means also, this week, we're giving our review in progress for Master Chief's multiplayer experience, including all of our praises and criticisms. Does the slow trickle of progression feel justified with the extended premium battle pass? Does 343 have enough content to fill out a roadmap for long-term success with all parties of players? All of this and more coming up on the newest jam-packed episode of the Gamecast.
Now the fun begins.
Rigid.
Stop! You violated the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and of course, PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us, rate us, review us, all that jazz, everything I tell you every week. Go and do it, damn it. Wherever you get a podcast at. And follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like, of course, our dope giveaways. I'm your host, as always, Travis White, aka Travelis, on most internet platforms. Joining me, as always, my co-pilot, my co-op partner, Mike Peapack. Mike, what's good? What's going on? And when I ask this, I know what we've been playing. We're going to get to that. That's the whole show this time around. But what else have you been playing this past week? Not necessarily the past 2 days or whatever. What have you been playing since we last spoke on the show?
Yeah, for me, outside of the obvious, which will be the show, I played some Diablo 2 Resurrected. Still playing that quite a bit. And then Halo 3 took up pretty much most of my Sunday. Because there was a lot of rumblings about the possibility of what actually happening. And there was a little tourney that ran that day, and then there wound up being a pop-up tournament where we had a draft and picked players, and wound up being like a really nice Sunday. But yeah, I spent most of Sunday kind of sending Halo 3 off with a bang, I guess you could say.
No, definitely.
But I didn't do like most of the other people I played with. Most of the other people uninstalled MCC as soon as they got the chance. I'm not that spiteful about it. I can imagine there'll still be times that I might want to fire up some MCC. So I didn't delete it, but yeah, I mean, I've just been enjoying, my week, just playing the good old, the same olds, nothing too crazy.
Yeah, and it's funny that you kind of say that about people deleting MCC. I couldn't imagine doing that. Not obviously, we're gonna have other stuff to talk about and be playing for quite a while, but in general, like, I still have such a, no matter what, I still have a fond place in my heart for not only the Halo campaigns, but the Halo multiplayers of years past. Like, I'm still going to want to play those. I'm still going to want to play through the campaigns. I'm still going to want to hop in and play some, CE, or go in and play some H2, H3 multiplayer at times. Like, that's just I'm going to get that itch, and like, I'm going to want to jump in with you guys and do that. So, I just couldn't imagine deleting that game, considering how many hundreds of hours I've put into that game to begin with. And the sole fact of, I'm going to get that itch because nothing scratches that itch like those. I mean, we could talk about certain things all you want about, the future of Halo or whatever, if it's going in the right direction or not, but nothing still has, it's like Jif peanut butter, if we're being honest. Like, you could have other peanut butter if you need to have Peter Pan peanut butter just to get through, that meal. Okay, yeah, whatever, but like, I'm only gonna, like, I still am gonna want Jif peanut butter, like, at times, kind of thing. So, I'm right there with you. It's just, it's always going to have a place on my hard drive kind of thing. Like, I'm not going to jump the gun that quick, but teach their own kind of thing. I get it. But in terms of me on my end, kind of been playing a couple of different things. I capped off my basically once a year Doom replay, Doom 2016 replay. That it's just one of those games now at this point, like I'm like breezing through it at like a 4-hour clip kind of thing. Like I'm pretty like boom, 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 just knowing all the story beats. But playing through that, wrap that up, which is always great. Like you said, been playing some MCC as well. And then I jumped back into Wolfenstein 2. I never beat that. I love Machine Games Wolfenstein games. I think they're fucking fantastic. I really think Machine Games in general is so underrated in a lot of what they do. Their writing's excellent. Visually, their games are excellent. From a gameplay standpoint, I think their shooting mechanics are pretty good overall. Like for a, you know, single player FPS style campaign game, like focused game, like I think it's really good. And it's immersive for what it's trying to do in the story it's trying to tell. And I think we're hopefully, knock on wood, going to see them really take this next, I don't want to say a next jump or a next, almost in the way that now people are acknowledging Arcane for, you know, how great Deathloop was. Well, Arcane's been great for 20 years plus. Like, they've done excellent work, and not to mention, obviously, most recently before that, the Dishonored series, but in general, and Prey too, like, they haven't necessarily gotten that mainstream attraction. Now they're getting that with Deathloop. I hope whenever Indiana Jones rolls around with Machine Games at the helm, I really hope that what they're cooking up with that, the attention that, even if the game isn't necessarily, you know, game of the year or whatever, though I think you're involving a lot of the right parties to potentially put out a game that is fucking fantastic. I truly think Machine Games is fucking excellent at doing large scale set pieces, and I think that's going to play in well to Indiana Jones. From what I love and know about Indiana Jones, I think that you know, that skill set that they have is going to, you know, mesh well with that overall. You know, knock on wood, we'll see. But I hope just in general that the clout and the namesake of that franchise and that IP will bring in general, and the power behind Disney to push that. I really hope that in general will kind of help put them into that limelight position of, hey, we're gonna get some focus on this team now, and oh shit, they've been doing all this great work. Oh shit, they have Wolfenstein. Like, that's right, they made the Wolfenstein games. I want to go back and play those, or X, Y, and Z. Like, I really am excited to see kind of down the road potentially what that's going to look like, and hopefully see that Arcane situation kind of pop up. But outside of that, yeah, that's obviously what the big topic of the show we're gonna talk about. I've been playing that very heavily since the minute it launched. But you know, in general though, those are what I've kind of been playing and what I've been doing and everything like that. So I don't want to hold everything up too much, but in general, there was one thing that I did want to kind of touch on, and that's the Game Awards in general. Obviously, we do our own Game of the Year special here on GPGC for the past couple of years, and we kind of been changing the format up here and there, and you know, in general, kind of like switching it up. Like year one, all three of us did, you know, we each pick a Game of the Year and different categories and things like that, yada yada, and then obviously capping it with Game of the Year, and then going into, okay, we're gonna do, you know, last year where it's, hey, we're gonna pick our top 3 games of the year and do an elevator pitch on them style thing, and then go in a little bit deeper on, you know, Game of the Year, yada yada. So obviously we're still kind of spitballing a couple of things how we want to do that. If we want to, I think every year whenever we kind of approach Game of the Year, it's like that, because I think the games industry in general kind of is always evolving and shifting, especially at a rapid pace, that I think different conversations need to be made at different times about different games and how impactful they were. And I think Game of the Year means something different to everyone who kind of covers games and talks about games, and, you know, to a degree in general. But the majority, though, within games media obviously recognizes the Jeff Keighley's Game Awards as the pinnacle of, hey, this is what we're using for our Oscars. This is our Grammys. This is our Emmys, yada yada. This is the highest honor that we're kind of focusing on right now for the pomp and circumstance from, quote unquote, the Academy kind of thing. But Jeff Keighley announced that the Game Awards have come to the conclusion on their nominees for Game of the Year. So I did want to put that out before we get into the bulk of the show. No news this week, no button mash. I wanted to give the bulk of the show, obviously, to the big elephant in the room, which we'll get to in a minute. But I did want to bring this up. The Game of the Year nominees are out. That's kind of the big news this week, that at least I think we should go into and talk about in terms of game side. But Game of the Year nominees have been given out. Deathloop from Arcane, as we talked about before. It Takes Two, Hazelight, the creators of Brothers, what's it called? Yeah, Brothers. Yeah, right? I think so. That's what it's called.
Hank.
I'll have to edit this. That's fine. Yeah, Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. That's why I was getting confused with. And A Way Out, obviously. And obviously, I haven't been very coy about it, but one of my games of the year, to say the least. It Takes Two. Metroid Dread, obviously a Nintendo game. Not too worried about that. Psychonauts 2, which is great to see from Double Fine, an Xbox Game Studio. And Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart from our friends at Insomniac, and then Resident Evil Village from Capcom, obviously. So yeah, definitely the big news to come out this week in terms of the game side. Outside of that, too, I just wanted to bring up again the ever-evolving story of what is going on with Activision and Blizzard. And we're going to get into that a little bit deeper on next week's show, because I wanted to make sure we address that this week, because it's just kind of coming out today and yesterday. We're recording on Wednesday, but really very hot coming out. One, I want to get all the information possible so we can kind of flesh it out a little bit. Let's talk about all of this. Definitely wanted to at least bring it up before that, to acknowledge it, to make sure we do put pressure on to say, hey, this is what's going on, so you're not missing any of that. If you haven't heard, there's been some new news that has come out from the whole situation with Bobby Kotick and Activision and Blizzard, everything involving them, and the sexual harassment issues that have been going on. But new information has come out that has shown that Bobby Kotick, the CEO of Activision, was aware of these issues, and was brought to him, and very much from all the information that we've been provided, put it to the side. And basically, I don't want to say necessarily enabled it, but definitely didn't do anything about it. If you don't do anything about it, you're enabling it. Yeah. Yep. So, very much, if you ask me, very much, maybe not to the extent of child rape or anything like that, but to the degree of the Penn State situation, in a similar, you can look at it that in terms of Joe Paterno not, obviously doing enough and not reporting that and not actually following through and knowing about the situation and not doing anything about it, given the success that they're having. So,
not even just Joe Paterno, because I just can't let.
Oh, no, Penn go State ahead. Yeah.
This goes from administrators from the top down, because Joe Paterno did, if you want to make the argument that he did his due diligence, I could allow it partially, because he did report it to, the upper institutional management, and they 100%, then elected to make the decision to cover it up. So, it is what it is. Joe Pa could have done more, because he basically owned that entire part of the country and university, which is a huge moneymaker for the NC2A, and that's the only reason why they still play sports to this day, or at least football. But nevertheless, I don't want to get on about that, because this is about what happened. It is what is happening at Blizzard, which obviously a huge scar and kind of bruise on the entire gaming community right now. Maybe not the entire gaming community, but at least the game development
from an
side.
Industry standpoint. And it's and I've been really happy to see the response of quote unquote gamers across the board, from a consumer end, people who do play games and support the games. Really, from usually you'll find a lot of, when you say gamer in the negative sense of very homophobic and transphobic and racist remarks that usually are added to that, and that kind of mentality, the shitty kind of mentality, it seems like a lot of people across the board have been very outspoken of hey, fuck this. You know, so it's been good to see that overall, the appropriate response, obviously. But just to kind of set a little bit of this before we move into our big topic, but just to kind of give you an excerpt of the Wall Street Journal piece that came out regarding this. Dan Bunting, co-head of Activision's Treyarch studio, was accused by a female employee of sexually harassing her in 2017 after a night of drinking, according to people familiar with the incident. Activision's Human Resources Department and other supervisors launched an internal investigation in 2019 and recommended that he be fired, but Mr. Kotick intervened to keep him. These people said. Mr. Bunting, who led Treyarch through the production of several successful Call of Duty games, was given counseling and allowed to remain at the company, these people said. Mr. Bunting did not respond to requests for comment. The Activision spokeswoman said an outside investigation was conducted in 2020. Quote, after considering potential actions in light of that investigation, the company elected not to terminate Mr. Bunting, but instead to impose other disciplinary measures, she said. Mr. Bunting left the company after the Journal asked about the incident. And then a quote to follow up with that as well, from that same article. Over the years, Mr. Kotick himself has been accused by several women of mistreatment both inside and outside of the workplace, and in some instances has worked to settle the complaints quickly and quietly, according to people familiar with the incidents and documents. So, there's also been new information that's come out that obviously shareholders now, a group of shareholders have been pushing for Mr. Kotick to resign, even though after, in response to the explosive story that came out regarding that, that he knew about various sexual misconducts and obviously himself was alleged to be a, perpetrator of these, and an employee walkout on top of that. The Activision's board is standing by him as of right now. And we're talking about over 100 employees walked out that day. We're talking Activision alone, too. But a lot has really been breaking down with this. Like I said, there's a lot of information that really has kind of, compounded on this. That I want to make sure that we get all the information possible so that when we present this, we can have a deep, meaningful conversation. But I feel pretty safe, Mike, speaking for both of us, when we do kind of say this or when I say this, but I feel safe saying this for you as well, regarding our views on the show and everything. Fuck Activision, fuck Blizzard, fuck Bobby Kotick. Do the fucking right thing. It's not that hard to not sexually assault someone. It is not that hard to do the right thing. It's not hard to speak up. If you see something, say something. Be honest. Just be a good person. We need to just fucking be better. Not as an industry, not as a media standpoint, as human beings. People just need to fucking be better. Period. Like, fucking period. I'm fucking getting tired of talking about this shit on a show that's supposed to be about fucking video games. Like, stop sexually assaulting people. Stop raping people. Stop fucking just being racist piece of shits. Like, it's not that fucking hard. It isn't. It really isn't that fucking hard. Sorry, I'm tired of fucking talking about this on the show, and I won't stop talking about this shit on the show because it fucking pisses me off that people have to fucking deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
That's somebody's who is sexually assaulted, and there's men who are sexually assaulted as well, and they're even more embarrassed to speak up about this because of the stigma that's around that. But people are embarrassed to talk up about this because they'll be viewed as, from a woman's standpoint, she was a slut. She went out, she put herself in that situation, this and that, and blah, 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 blah. No, I'm just so fucking tired of it. The dog thinks I'm yelling at her now. She's getting all upset. I'm not yelling at you, sweetie. But I'm just tired of this. I'm so fucking tired of shitty fucking people. I'm so fucking tired of talking about this. But I won't stop talking about this shit that fucking comes up because those people who are afraid to talk up about it shouldn't have to feel afraid to fucking talk about it. I'll talk for them in that regard. I'll help spread their fucking concerns about it. And I'll be an ally. Mike will be an ally. We'll be an ally for those fucking people. So I just want to make sure we got that clear and across the board before we have the conversation next week. Fuck Activision, fuck Blizzard, and fuck Bobby Kotick. And I'm somebody who's trying to probably get a job in the video game industry. Like, I'm going back to school to learn how to do, 3D modeling and texturing and animation and everything like that. If that's what the industry is and that's what's happening and that's what's being enabled, I don't want any part of that. So I'm okay with not working at Activision if that's how it's going to be. I'm okay with not working at Blizzard, even though they've made dozens of my favorite games, potentially of all time. I know Mike is the same way, but I feel safe fucking saying, fuck them. And I wouldn't want to work for somebody like Bobby Kotick. So I'm cool with burning a bridge if they ever found this fucking I'm cool with that. If that's the case, I'm fucking okay with that. I'm okay with that. And with the show, if that doesn't mean, oh, we don't get a code for Call of Duty, or oh, we don't get a code for, you know, the next remaster from Blizzard, or a new WoW expansion or some shit like that, or Overwatch 2, that's fucking fine. That's okay. I'm cool with that. Well, if I really want to fucking play the game, even though I wouldn't support, I'll make sure to buy a used copy from GameStop so y'all don't get the fucking cash. Zen, peace, tranquility. All right, I'm good. A lot of pent up shit the past couple of days about that, because there's been a lot of really fucking incredibly dope shit going on right now. I didn't expect to go with that tirade, but I'm glad I did, because I feel safe saying that for both of us. Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, but fuck Bobby Kotick, fuck Activision, and fuck Blizzard. Fix your shit. I would love to not say those things, but y'all fucking deserve it.
I couldn't say it much better myself. I will say that, like, I myself, I don't want to put words in your mouth about this in particular. I myself am a huge proponent for educating someone, and, you know, I know you've been there, I've been there, where we've made mistakes, and again, I
talked about it multiple times on the show about how I had an incident in college where I had a friend who was gay, and I said, I remember using the terminology like, oh, that's gay, or something like that. And him, instead of fucking yelling at me, or instead of bitching me out, or whatever, like, getting up in my face about it, he said, whoa, hey, let's talk about that. Like,
yeah.
Like, what do you, that feels like, that's a hit at me. And I'm like, oh, no, I just meant it, like, he's like, no, I know what you meant by it. I know where you're coming from. I get it. But, like, I need you to understand that doesn't make it right. He was like, let's talk about that, because as a gay man, like, I feel this way. Same with, I have friends who are gay women who, you know, that's the same thing. Like, they would be affecting them as well. Like, but if I never had that incident happen and somebody educate me on that and know, like, hey, I know what you're saying. You're using that as just a blanket insult or whatever. Like, but me as a gay man, I take offense to that, and I don't like that. Let's change that. Like, that hit home, and that modeled the way of, like, okay, I'm going to think before I talk, and I'm going to change I'm not going to be a homophobe, even though I'm not, but, like, in that regard of enabling that. Like, I'm with you. Sorry to interrupt you, but yeah.
No, it's okay.
I'm with you. Like, if I fuck up, like, I'm gonna let you know, because, hey, I fucked up multiple times. You fucked up multiple. Everybody fucks up. That's life. It's about educating yourself and owning up to that and saying, you know what? I'm being accountable for me fucking up, and I'm falling on the sword. Let's get better, you know? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You're good. And I will say, you know, just real quick before you move on, like I said, I mean, I'm all for forgiveness. I'm all for education. I'm all for making the world a better place, in a lot of different ways. But for this in particular, what this feels like is a spit into the face of the victims, because, you know, you had an investigation and this was uncovered, and, you know, you're trying to make your place a more inclusive workplace. You're trying to do right to basically save yourself. And all this is this is a conglomerate. This is a company that is letting money talk, and money, you know, decide, like, oh, you know, this person helped us make X amount of dollars over the years, and we're afraid that if we get rid of them now, that our stock's going to take a hit. This is going to take a hit, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the case may be, there's too many cases of this in, you know, corporate America, where money kind of talks. And again, I'm not looking to crucify anyone. I'm not looking to do anything like crazy or cut their head off. I mean, if it comes out that, you know, things were more heinous than what we're led to believe currently, then absolutely, you know, that's when we start having that type of conversation. But this is another, you know, perfect example, and some people out there might be familiar, where it's kind of a similar story, where if you've seen the new season of You, they kind of touch on it briefly, and where, you know, the individuals that kind of created Silicon Valley are very intelligent people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're extremely intelligent when it comes to technology and those sorts of things, math, all that kind of stuff that goes into it. But it proves that, you know, the stories that come out of Silicon Valley back, like, you know, from a while ago about all the sexual harassment that happened there,
Mm-hmm.
it's unfortunate that it feels like, you know, a lot of these individuals have really poor interpersonal skills, and it shows when something like this, you know, happened, where you're having an internal investigation and your CEO, or an external investigation, and your CEO is guilty of the exact same crime that you're ousting characters, you know, ousting founding people like Jesse McCree, who, you know, you had a character named after, and then you go in and then you rename the character to kind of appease the, you know, some people might call it woke mob, but, you know, I'm willing to call it, you know, an accountability, you know, society holding people accountable. And while society does seem to kind of be recoiling back from how crazy it was with holding people accountable, you know, you just can't sweep stuff under the rug, and you're doing all these things to kind of look good in the public eye, to try to save face, and then your CEO, who's in a leadership role, is guilty of it.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're still backing him and supporting him. And it's like, again, it's spitting in the face of the victims. It's spitting in the face of the public that supported Blizzard, that continues to support Blizzard. And again, I know I've said on this show that I bought Diablo 2 Resurrected regardless of all the issues, because I wanted to support the people that created the game.
Right, and that's not my tirade wasn't pointed at them. I support those people who are walking out on that, like you would too. You know, it's not that. It's the only way these people understand who fucking enabled this shit is not financially supporting them now. Like, you know what I mean? Because that's all they fucking care about. Because that they wouldn't let that happen, I would hope, in any other situation. Like, if money's blinding you, money blinds a lot of fucking shit, is basically what I'm trying to say. And not right by any means, but if that's what's going on, then okay, that's how you fucking hit them, but in their fucking wallet.
And that's the only way that you can, that's the easiest, well, might be the only way to make a change in corporate America, unfortunately, is doing something that affects their bottom line. And that's what's being done. So I'm happy for that. But I would like to say that, you know, this isn't, I mean, we just got to be, like you said, we got to be better as humans, because we got to make sure that we're not only holding people accountable, but it doesn't really help or make people see your message when you're wanting to just end people's lives over things of this nature. Does he deserve it? Potentially. We'll see what more comes out of it, and depending on how heinous it was, absolutely. But also, it makes some people who might be like, oh, well, you know, who hasn't made a mistake at the bar, or done this or done that, or whatever the case may be, those types of people are the ones that I really would like to be able to reach and show, like, hey, this is why we feel this way, and this is why we see it this way. We want society to go in this direction, and this is why it should. I don't want people to have excuses to recoil back from this and say, oh, it's just a woke mob going after him again. No, I want to pin his ass to the wall. If, you know, it wasn't super heinous, then he'll have a chance at redemption. If it was heinous, then, you know, too bad, so sad. It is what it is. You made your bed, and now you'll lie in it. And, you know, that's kind of all I really wanted to say about that, and we'll cover it more next week.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like you said, we have to keep fucking talking about this kind of stuff all the time on this show, and all we want to do is cover stuff that we want to cover that's not something so devastating as this. And I use the term devastating because that's how I feel for the victims and everything of that nature. So without further ado, we can, you know, move on, and we'll cover that next week, obviously, for you guys.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, maybe fortunately, if you guys want to hear the news about it.
But yeah, we'll table the rest of the conversation for next week. But anyways, though, Mike, let's end hopefully a little more positive conversation in general. But, you know, obviously, we wanted to make sure, this being the biggest story, obviously, to come in the world of Xbox this week, but we wanted to make sure we gave the floor. Like I said, no big news articles, no button mash this week. Really, I guess, to something we, I think, expected to give in, the show to be about in a couple weeks, but hey, here we are. Really, I guess a review in progress of Halo Infinite. At least the multiplayer section, because as of, Monday afternoon, Halo Infinite's multiplayer is live. You can go on Steam, you can go on Xbox Live, you can go on the Microsoft Store, Game Pass, whatever you're playing on, and play the multiplayer of Halo Infinite right now for free to play. So it is live, and we've been playing it. We've been playing a lot of it. Mike's been playing a lot of it for sure. Now that he Now that he doesn't have to worry about, we got to grind a week of his life away, to then head to Raleigh. You've been able to put in a lot of time now to get ready and feel much more obviously confident that you'll at least be able to go into that a little bit more, centered, I guess. But yeah, Halo Infinite is now out. Uber Nick put out a great tweet the other day, or I think it was yesterday or either this morning or something, saying like, I can't believe now, like, Halo Infinite's here, like, now all we do, we live in a timeline where we just play Halo Infinite now. Like, like we've been talking about this shit for how many years now? Like, now we just play the game. Now it's here. All the anticipation's over, at least for multiplayer. So, Mike, I guess I want to just make this, free form as possible. Us talking about this. So, I kind of just want to kick it off, and I don't know how long our conversation will be. It's mostly, like I said, as free form as possible. Just kind of wanted to make sure we touched on this and made this the focus of our conversation, since, as much of the video game industry is trying to do is scramble with a shadow drop of one of the biggest games of the year and biggest tentpole franchises in video games. What are your thoughts as of right now on the technically beta, like early access, if you want to call it, I don't even know, but the full version of Halo Infinite's multiplayer, Season 1, what are you thinking? Where are your thoughts at right now, 2 days after launch, on Halo Infinite's multiplayer?
Yeah,
general before we go in deeper, obviously.
Yeah, I would say overall, I think, like I said, there were some whispers and some things that were happening, especially in the competitive community, where there was a data miner with the Halo Hub API guys. He was kind of mining some information about matchmaking sessions from some of the team there at 343. He saw the servers were up. He saw that ranked matchmaking was live. He saw some coding from the game, So again, this was something that was talked about, Sunday morning. We were all kind of talking about it like, oh, maybe. And then by the time Sunday night rolled around, it was kind of a foregone conclusion from most of the community that this was going to be the case, that the game was going to release. And also, I would like to point out the fact of, the Twitch Rivals tournament that happened with Halo 3, basically right before Halo Infinite launch. It's kind of no secret, or at least now it's a little bit more obvious as to why that tournament took place in such a quick, rapid fashion, because I feel like it was announced Tuesday of last week. It was announced Tuesday and it was happening Saturday. So, those types of things, all signs were kind of leading to, this happening. So, first, real quick, I want to, take my hat off to the team at 343. I know I've been one of their biggest critics on this show. I was critical and, even maybe thought that the game was going to get delayed again. So the game came out Monday at 1:00. They did a, pretty solid job with their Xbox 20th anniversary showcase, and then, announced that Halo Infinite was dropping pretty much immediately. It's considered a beta, but for all intents and purposes, this is the full launch of the game. I would like to say that the game feels significantly different than it did at the beta. It feels a bit more optimized. It's not perfect, but there are some things coming out that I will cover, after this little general dive into it, of maybe if you're having some issues yourself with optimization, maybe I can give you some tips or guidance on how to make it a little bit better for you at home. But yeah, overall, pretty positive stuff. I do have some friends in the Halo competitive community that are less than happy with the game, and they're also the type of people that they were probably going to be miserable regardless. So take that with a grain of salt. I would like to say that just right off the top, so I don't have to cover it in my in-depth view or in-depth discussion. The current progression on the battle pass, whatever they were trying to plan to do, it's just not gonna work. That's been one of the most overwhelming sentiments of the entire community, is like, we need to fix this. This needs to be better. The way it is now is totally unacceptable. Let's get cracking on it. So I think 343 has acknowledged, basically came out and said, hey, we hear you. We realize that what you guys were looking for or expecting, this isn't quite it. What we were expecting, it kind of missed the mark. It's being investigated. So kudos to them. That much I can say. And that was within release day, basically. When release day came, that discussion pretty much came from the community managers about 5 hours after launch. So they're already kind of acknowledging shortcomings and issues and trying to rectify them. And that's good. And again, I know this is just a deep dive. We'll get into my thoughts on the gameplay and everything in a little bit. But I will say that was one of my biggest concerns and gripes was, just game development studios in general not taking the proper steps to making sure that their game is properly vetted in quality assurance purposes. And this is a good way to make sure that the game is a quality game. So I'm curious to hear what your general sentiment on the game is. I would say for me right now, pretty positive. There are some issues, but the search or the quest to make a video game perfect is a long one, and it might never end. So you guys have to understand from an audience standpoint, if this is the first show that you're ever listening to, if this is the first time you're ever hearing me give my opinion on something could be a 9 out of 10 to me. Whether it be a milkshake, a steak, a burger, whatever it is in my life, a video game, if it's a 9 out of 10, that's very good. And some people would be so over the roof or over the moon about it and be like, wow, like this burger was incredible. It's almost perfect. I'm the type of person, and it's a good and a bad thing, where I will give you my feedback on what would make it a 10 out of 10. Because for me, in my work, in my life, I'm kind of always searching for that 10 out of 10. I'm kind of always searching for what changes I can make to make sure whatever I do, I'm the best at, or it's my best iteration, whatever the case may be. So before I get into my deep dive review, I just want to give that as a general disclaimer that even if it sounds like I'm being incredibly critical, this is what I think could make the game perfect. And ultimately, I think that's what everyone's kind of striving for in every facet of your life. I think everyone's kind of looking for that piece of perfection, that perfect pie. And my review will strictly be based on what I think could be changed or tweaked to make it exactly that, the perfect experience. Whether it's obtainable or not, probably not. But I'm going to tell you what I think you could do to get it to that point, or at least get closer to having that perfect game.
Yeah. And from my standpoint, I like to say that I am overall very positive as well. Well, I'm overall positive, I should say. I'm a little bit more positive than I think you are, but I'm also a different style of player than you are. I mean, granted, I still enjoy rank play. I still enjoy playing at, the game competitively, having call-outs, everything like that, like playing the game in a competitive fashion. But I also am not necessarily wanting to go and play in tournaments and everything like that. Like, I just enjoy playing, casually ranked, if you want to even look at it that way. But overall, I feel the game, there are some things that I have nitpicks with it, more or less. But not necessarily a lot of glaring things where I look at this game and I say, okay, for the most part, a lot of these can be tweaked. From kind of like what we talked about yesterday when we were playing of, hey, why are we playing Behemoth and we're doing AR starts? And it's a Slayer game type. We're not playing CTF or anything like that. We're playing Slayer on Behemoth with AR starts on a map that is fucking huge. Like, this doesn't make any sense necessarily. This is kind of like, but that's something that can be changed. That is something that they could easily switch that out. Another big thing that I have an issue with that may be a little bit more difficult, but Adam seems to believe, because he's always my default to the programming end of this. But when it comes to game development, but he likes to think it isn't necessarily overtly difficult to make happen. But I have an issue with ranked in the sense of a lot of I had it run into not granted, I've probably played about 40-ish games so far total on my account. Like, I'm only maybe, I think it was like 12 hours into the game, something like that, or my time into the game. But I've run into maybe about 4 or 5 matches that have ended up, whether it is myself on the team that is this way or in general, or if it's on the opposite team. But I'm getting into a lot. When I say a lot, it's not, every single game, but more than I feel comfortable with, getting into a lot of 3v4 matches right off the rip in ranked. And that wouldn't be too much of an issue if in most, modern multiplayer games, especially Valorant had this day one, hey, we're getting into, and granted, even with Valorant, it's doing this in unranked. We're getting into a game right off the rip and, somebody drops out in the first minute or so. Or, hey, we're launched into a game that we're down one person. Okay, we're going to cancel the game out. Like, the game's automatically coded and designed to, okay, we get into this situation where it's just, kerfluffle on our end. Somebody's game crashes when they're loading in or something like that. We don't have that person. You're down one person in the first minute of the game or whatever. Okay, cool. We're gonna wax this one. Like, we're gonna kick you back to the menu. So, to me though, that's something that should be day one with Infinite. But then again, and I guess I should say they don't have that. That too many games where, okay, it's my fault that I'm being punished for somebody else leaving or whatever, whether it's tech issues, whether it's rage quitting, whether it's, I don't want to play, I decided I don't want to play one more game, shit, I can't back out of RN, I'm going to just shut my PC down. Like, disconnecting in some way that I'm now affected by it. Like, that's my fault, and that's going to negatively impact me whenever I'm trying to rank up or I'm trying to go on, work on my, my win percentage or whatever. Like, even, we're faced at a disadvantage. Instead of just backing me out to the main menu, I got to sit there and play with it. And if I quit, because there are some games that are, okay, if you quit, this person just left halfway through your game. If you still quit within the next minute or so, yeah, you're going to be docked. Like, you're going to be punished or you're going to be penalized for that. But if you quit, if they don't come back within the next 2 minutes, if you quit, then yeah, it'll still be registered as a loss, but you won't be negatively impacted outside of that. You're not going to actually get, a bump at your rank. You're not going to get X, Y, and Z happen. You're not going to have to be, on a 5-minute ban or whatever. Like, don't worry about it. There's nothing like that in Infinite. And if this is the game that won, we've obviously seen that 343 and Microsoft are both heavily committed to making sure there is a, competitive outlet with esports within this title at a professional level and an amateur level, that they want to make sure that there is a committed community behind that. And especially to this being a free-to-play game that, as of right now, there are, on Steam alone, there are, I believe it was 150,000 people playing it right now. Almost 160,000 people currently in-game right now on Steam alone. Mm-hmm. That's just on Steam alone right now. So, for a game that is going to balloon in terms of its player base, a lot of these people playing ranked and a lot of the hardcore Halo community coming back, it's a little disappointing to see that right now. But then again, these are potentially all things that could be fixed. The only thing that I'm questioning that might be a little hard to fix, my biggest thing is the lunge and the melee magnetism that's on there. It's just really, to me, it feels really different compared to previous Halo titles. It's almost like you just have that muscle memory in terms of playing a game for so long, and playing, the original trilogy of Halo games plus 343's Halo games too on top of that, like, I know exactly when I should expect to hit that melee to go in and go in there and either get a backsmack or go in and try to break a shield on a melee. Like, I have a good feeling of that, of the muscle memory to go in and do that. And it just feels like I am whiffing every single time that I go into melee. And I'm like, I'll be like, I know, listen, I'm not good at Halo by any stretch of the imagination. But I know that I should have easily gotten that kill, or I know that this wasn't me wronging myself. I'm not completely fucking up on this. Like, so, but that may just also be, hey, I gotta get good at times and just fucking figure out what the new one is and learn new muscle memory and yada yada. But if they're wanting to reignite this community, and a lot of players enjoy having, traditions of Halo that have kept this franchise going on for so long, I'm not saying this is completely one, but I'd like the game to have somewhat of a feel that it did for the past 20 years, because there's a reason why people have still adored this franchise for 20 years. So overall, though, I think the game still, to me, the game runs really well. I have, knock on wood, I haven't crashed once. I've only really been kicked back to the menu once, twice at most, with games. I know some people have. Mike, you've had a little bit of technical issues here and there, nothing super major from what it sounds like, but still had, some technical issues. But you've also played a little bit more than me. So, overall, I think the game is relatively well optimized in general compared to earlier builds that we've seen of the game. I think you're able to physically tell that a lot of the feedback has gone into the flights that have went out in the tech previews. I think a lot of that feedback was taken and added, and we've obviously got newer and newer builds along that. And I think this game, knock on wood, has so far run really well. I haven't had really any major issues where I'm like, oh, I got to really tone this down, or, oh, this is really rough to play, even though it says I'm getting 90 frames or whatever on Ultra, but it feels like I'm getting 20 or something. Like on my 165 hertz monitor on 1440p, like I should be getting this. I know what this is supposed to look like. This isn't it, because I was getting that in the original tech preview where it was really bad. That I'm like, it's telling me I'm getting 90 frames. This is for sure not 90 frames. Like, but seeing where this game is now, it's obvious that, to me at least, it's obvious that the bigger kerfluffles with this game that caused them to say, hey, we need to delay this game indefinitely, or we need to punt this game a year in advance. It seems like the biggest issues were on the campaign side. That so many people had talked about, that from what it sounded like from insiders and people close to the project, it sounded like campaign was the biggest issue. So I think you rarely see anybody launch a game, especially of this magnitude, early. It's clear that the multiplayer end of it was obviously one of the first components that they really, when developing this game, laid down and said, we gotta make sure we fucking really nail this down. And whether it's a game I like in general or not, this is a game that I could tell is polished, is gotten the time put into it. I need to obviously learn some of the newer nuances with the game and some of the newer issues, or newer parts of the game that I just need to learn compared to other Halo titles. But overall, I can tell this is a game that has some money put into it. And Mike, I'll kick it back to you here in a second, but you brought up the Battle Pass. I understand both sides, where when I look at the Battle Pass and people are saying progression is slow, progression is messed up, and full transparency, I don't know if you have, Mike, but I bought the premium Battle Pass. Did you?
Not yet.
Okay, but I'm sure you will at some point for the amount of time you're playing the game. So we'll both own the premium Battle Pass this season, I'm sure. And I've always been a big proponent of, I am really positive on the end of, hey, none of these Battle Passes ever expire. You can pick and choose between which one you want to work on at times once you get to ones that there are multiple of them. I get the side where people are saying, hey, These are battle passes that don't expire. These are battle passes that are good until, like, this battle pass runs until May 2022. Okay, cool. Like, I get that this isn't supposed to take forever to run, or you're not supposed to speed through this, almost like, you would a Fortnite battle pass or a Call of Duty Warzone battle pass or whatever, like whatever battle pass you have, or a Destiny season. Like, you don't necessarily burn through this super quick. I get that reason, but at the same time too, nobody necessarily cares about the carrot on the string if the stick is too long. So at what point is it, okay, well, even somebody like me, I've been simping on Rockstar energy drinks now for the past couple of weeks, stocking up on double XP because of my worried approach of how long is it going to take to get through this battle pass. I want to make sure I'm getting the most XP possible. Like, I already drink energy drinks as it is. Fuck, I might as well drink Rockstar ones and log all these codes that I'm getting. And some of the skins are also dope too because I love black and gold. But in general, though, like, even using double XP at times I'm grinding this game, like, I think I'm level 6 on my battle pass now, and I'm 12 hours in. So every 2 hours I'm getting a level, give or take. Like, I agree that I'm in the camp of I would prefer a much more traditional approach to progression, where my account has different levels and my account has, different ranks associated with it. Like, I like that. I like having onus on that. But at the same time, too, I do understand some of the, hey, this is content that's supposed to last you a while. But at the same time, too, if the stick's way too long to get to that carrot, and the carrot you're getting, not that I think some of the, I like the cosmetics that we're getting this time around. But at the same time, too, some of the cosmetics aren't necessarily as impactful as I would hope they would be. If that carrot's not necessarily the ripest of the bunch and the stick's way too long to get to that carrot, is it worth going through and doing that? I mean, I'm glad I bought it because I want to support Halo moving forward, and I want to make sure that their free-to-play model succeeds because I want every single game that comes out to succeed. But I don't know. What do you think, Mike? I guess just looking at it from that perspective, because I wasn't necessarily at first looking at that perspective, and somebody brought that to my attention a couple days ago, and I was like, you know what? I get it. I don't necessarily still agree with it, but okay, I see it.
Yeah, I mean, I do understand that you're trying to have a slow burn on it, because I think this is a way for them to try to maintain player base, and you can't really blame them for, like, looking to maintain player base, because some of the community that has been, like, a little bit critical of it being Halo Infinite, has been like, hey, what's the player base going to look like in 3 months? Then talk to me, because Halo 5 had a pretty big player base right off the rip also. But people don't forget that game saw a drastic drop in player base shortly after release, and I think 343 is trying to navigate through that and figure out how to hold on to this huge player base that they've got, because on top of all the Halo fans that are playing this game, I've seen a lot of the content creators. Dr. Disrespect has been talking very glowingly of Halo Infinite. I've seen a lot of other content creators that have been spending some time on Halo Infinite, and with it, it's been third in the directory for viewership. I saw it last night at like 170,000 viewers watching on Twitch. And that's enormous numbers for a franchise that, unfortunately, traditionally, because of the lack of content or whatever you want to call it, it hasn't really had that much success on Twitch. And, it's been a pretty solid release as far as initial numbers and initial support and initial players. So what we're looking for, as a community, I'm sure, and as video game creators, are how do we hang on to these people? How do we keep them engaged? 100%. And the slow progression from the battle pass is the way that they are trying to do it. Unfortunately, you know, if you're releasing a beta of a game that should have been out a year ago.
Mhm.
And I'm using air quotes beta because that's what they're saying this is.
Mhm.
You know, right now we only have like 5 arena maps. I don't know how many are in Big Team because I haven't played Big Team Battle yet.
I've played 2 Big Team Battle games, to give you some perspective. Played 2 of them because one of the weeklies that I got was, hey, win a Big Team Battle match for my challenges, a weekly challenge. I was like, easy. I'll jump in and do that just to get it out of the way. I don't really want to play Big Team, but fuck it, sure, why not? And I wasted pretty much like 20 minutes, it felt like, in the first game, lost right at the last minute, and wasted another 20 minutes in the second one and lost. So I was like, you know what? I'm done. I was like, you know what? I am going to use one of my swaps on this. I am not playing Big Team. Unless it's like I have a group of 6 people and we want to play Big Team. Outside of that, I'm not fucking playing. But yes, it's the maps are pretty decent. I do actually like the Big Team map that they had in the tech preview that I can't remember the name of it just because I haven't played Big Team that much. Both that map, I actually really like that one a lot, and the other one that they plopped in there too so far are pretty decent, but I like the aesthetic of them, I like the layout of them, but I'm with you, Big Team's not necessarily, you know, it's not my cup of tea necessarily.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're releasing a multiplayer of a game that is pretty bare. It's not bare bones per se, but there aren't a lot of maps. There aren't a lot of game modes. You have some leeway right now where you know you have other maps either done or coming down the pipe. You know you have content coming that's fresh and new. We don't need to lean on a battle pass that's going to take people a unbelievable amount of hours to complete, or simply just throw money at it and complete it. And that is a fine line to balance that a lot of game developers have trouble with, is where do we draw the line? How much money or time do we want you to invest in this? And, you know, I'm not like envious to be in the position of a game developer to try to make that decision. But I will say how you're going to keep these content creators around, how you're going to keep a new wave of players around, because I've seen a lot of my friends that I competed in Call of Duty with or against at the local level. I've seen a lot of Call of Duty players talking about making the move to Halo. And the reason why they're doing that is because A, the game was free to play, so they downloaded it. B, they've watched it on stream and they've got their own hands on it and they really enjoy it. And C, a lot of the content creators are talking very glowingly about this game, and, you know, for good reason. It deserves it. So that's how you're going to keep the content creators and new breed around, is give them things to look for. Now they released now, you know, my talk in a little bit, it's going to be a little bit more about the competitive aspect of it, but they released a roadmap of what to expect from Halo as far as the Halo Championship Series. And that's something that's on brand for Adam Apicella, who is running Esports Engine, who partnered with Halo to run these, who was the old coordinator guy who basically ran all the tournaments for MLG, including including the Counter-Strike major. He's been with them since his first tournament was in Wheeling, West Virginia in like 2002, which was a Halo 1, tournament. That was his first time organizing a Halo tournament. And it's no secret that Adam Apicella, Sundance D. Giovanni, the old owner of MLG, Mike Sepso, those guys are all super invested into Halo because that was the first game that they fell in love with. Or it might not be the first game they fell in love with, but they loved Halo. And all those things have cultivated this culture where a lot of people are wanting to make the swap from Call of Duty because they still don't have an announcement on their first tournament. And the game's been full release for much longer than beta, for Halo. So, there's a lot of reasons why a lot of players are making the jump to Halo Infinite. And, this is all a big way to say, like, I don't think you're going to keep all those players that have come in around because they want to unlock a pretty neat skin. There has to be new content being brought into the game, whether it's maps, game types, whatever the case may be. There has to be new maps being added with relative regularity. And then you'll keep this new blood around because you don't want it to be a fad you want it to be like a war zone where, yeah, at first it's really cool and it's what everyone's doing is playing Warzone, but you want those players to stick around. And I don't think a Game Pass, no offense, is the way that you're going to do that. It's just, that's not the answer, unfortunately. So we'll see what they kind of what they work with. Like I said, I think they'd have a lot more success if they were to, release a little bit more content, whether it be maps or whatever. I think they'd be a lot more successful with that. And we'll see what they elect to do going forward. But yeah, that's where I'm at on the Game Pass. I'm not the biggest proponent of it. I don't love it. I would like to see them look for other ways to keep player base engaged.
No, definitely. And I'm definitely in the same camp on that regard. I at the end of the day, content's king. It's what drives all of these live service games, and very much so. Halo Infinite is now a live service game, and I think from what we're hearing a lot on the single player side of things, or I should say the campaign side of things, even that is going to have live service elements in terms of we're going to get potentially multiple installments of its campaign over time. We'll have the main campaign and then not DLCs, but almost like we see with Destiny getting the single player or, narrative expansions and things like that. We're going to get new campaigns along with it. So, very much at the end of the day with any game like this, content is king. So if you don't have content with it, and that's
not skins,
and not just skins, like I want more maps. I want,
because everyone's going to get bored of these maps, really quick.
Right. And, it's, you pop into multiplayer and there's, 4 options, three options that are actual, PvP where it's, you're getting quick play, and you can narrow it down obviously within the playlist that you want to actually go in, but you could just jump into quick play and do unranked matches, ranked play, and big team battle. So, I get it, but at the end of the day, I'm going to want a little more of a customizable experience, and I'm going to want more maps. I'm going to want, yes, more skins on top of that too. Basically, I need to make sure that there's more things for me to invest my time in there and my money too, potentially. So, I'm like I've said before, I'm all for supporting, even if it's something I end up not gelling with at the end of the day, I'm all for supporting development or supporting games because it supports developers at the end of the day, obviously, outside of, now that we're finding out about Activision and things like that, I'm not going to fucking support that shit. But point being, I want to support these things. So even if I don't end up gelling with the game, I don't feel like I wasted my money. But when it comes to live service games that I'm buying into and I'm dipping my toe in, and I'm saying, like Destiny, I'll go on binges of Destiny where I play it for 50 to 100 hours at a clip, and then be like, oh, I'm done for a while. And I fall off of it because I either gobble up all of the content that's there, or I get, kind of burned out with it and move on to something else. But I want to have reasons to, hey, their mindset should be, hey, I want Halo Infinite to be the one game people play. I want that to be this person's game that they play. So, if that's the case, then I sure hope that they do have a plan moving forward from 343, for something that isn't necessarily 6 months down the line. And I'm glad that they've said too, hey, this is just a launch of season 1. We're going to have what it seems like is monthly events that'll offer new things, new skins, new, I'm sure new game types or, specific, shakeups to game types, new maps. I'm sure there's more things that are coming because you would hope that one of the most, lucrative franchises in gaming and most prominent franchises in gaming would be able to make sure they have something to back that up with and keep it within that light. So in general, I think just kind of wrapping up the conversation on it, because this is very much a review in progress. We're like everyone else. We are jumping in with every other media and, industry gaming media outlet, I guess you want to say, jumping in, every personality, whatever, jumping in and getting this game just like you are. So our thoughts are ever evolving still. And it's going to take, for a full package, we're probably going to be talking about campaign, or we're obviously going to be talking about campaign when that launches and reviewing that as well. But we're going to probably we may wait for the multiplayer end to give our final, review on that when when campaign launches, and we can actually give this full package a review. But for right now, overall for my review in progress, like I do feel very good about this. I feel we're, let's put it this way. I haven't felt, very rarely do you get the feeling of playing a new Halo game. We very rarely got it. And there's something special about that I put Halo up there with. I remember all of the launch days for Halo games that I played. That I remember going to get the game and waiting around, and even when MCC launched and being like, fuck, this feels special. And while it stumbled out the gate, we eventually got to somewhere where MCC is a very special experience now that people talk very fondly of. That overall, from an overall community, that is. But in general, though, like, it's one of those things that it's one of those huge tentpole franchises in video games that doesn't come around very often. And I feel very good about this one from where they're at least first step they're taking. Sure, the ground, there's a little bit of gravel on the rock, but not enough that I think this is slipping necessarily right off the bat. Like you said, I'm with you. More content needs to be there. I want to see a roadmap to know from a content standpoint where we're going to be at. But overall, I think at least starting out, a lot of the issues that I have are fixable. A lot of the issues are, hey, this isn't a shit. This is a core problem that I'm seeing with this game that is not something, it's a, hey, we got to go back to the drawing board to fix this game. I'm seeing a lot of, hey, we got to tweak some of these things. AR starts and, on large scale maps like we were talking about. Some of the things I think they need to, maybe toy with the melee magnetism and lunging and stuff like that. And, things they need to just adjust with multiplayer to be able to kick people out. If it's, hey, we're starting 3v4 off the rip, okay, cool. You're not either penalized or we're just kicking you back to put you back in, restarting the queue kind of thing. Outside of that, though, I've thoroughly enjoyed my experience so far. I've had a lot of fun playing this game. For the majority of the time I'm playing it, sure, I'm getting frustrated every now and then, but like that's every fucking, multiplayer game you're ever going to play. That's going to happen at times. But overall, I feel good about this game. And that's not something I could say all the time with a lot of more recent Halo games at the start. So, Mike, what's your kind of closing thoughts on Halo Infinite? Right now, your review in progress, what do you kind of want to wrap it up with?
Yeah, I would say, personally for me, it was really refreshing to get on.
That's a great way to put it.
It was refreshing. It was refreshing to get on a Halo game and see one of my best friends, Mike Collins, playing again.
Yes.
To see one of my best friends, Jackson Kyle, who I teamed with for an event, who goes by Dr. Prodigy now. But back when I first met him, we were young kids in 8th grade, or I think he might have been in 8th grade. I might have been in 7th grade playing Halo 2 together. And Mike Collins, I met through Halo 2 back when I was that young also. So it's refreshing to see, and it puts a smile on my face to see those types of people back into Halo, and both of them, Jackson.
It's wild to think about too. Like I kind of thought about that the day after my wedding. I was like, somebody that I met through playing Halo and through playing video games, not at school, not at college, not at work or whatever. Somebody I met through our, shared passion of video games, who became a friend and a friend in real life, is at my wedding. Like, came to my wedding and consider one of my close friends. Like, it's just video. It's those kind of moments that like I wouldn't have without Halo. So like it made me think about it, and that's like a lot of like when I pop on and I'm like you, and I see all of these people jumping back and just being fucking excited about Halo, being excited about this franchise, this IP, that it feels like there's a breath of fresh air kicked into it a little bit. That it hits you good,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just been like you said. I mean, it's been a little bit of a revelation. It does feel a bit like a new Halo, and I've enjoyed it, profusely. I think I've played. Let me look at my Steam profile real quick. I've played 22.7 hours, probably none of which are idle or very little, if that. Going to my Halo 2 tracker, or my Halo Infinite tracker database, I'm Onyx 1518 in crossplay open. I've played about 90. I've played 95 matches at this point. My KD is only 1.36, but again, I'm playing against a lot of professional players and highly competitive individuals. I'm in the top 6% of all players in average damage. You have to consider the fact that people who play Big Team Battle are going to have a ton of damage because there's a lot more players. I'm in the top 6% of it with an average damage per game of 5,300. Which if you've played some competitive games, that's a lot. I'm in the top 0.1% of with kills with 1788. I'm in the 0.1% 0.1 percentile. That's 0.1 percentile of assists with 743. I'm in the 0.1 percentile of damage dealt and taken with 507,000 damage dealt and 415,000 taken. Matches 163, which is good for 0.1%. I mean, I've played this game a lot. I've given it a lot of effort and thought, and I've been enjoying it. Oh, and my shot accuracy is 59.1%, which is good for top 0.8%. So, with all that being said, I mean, I've played a lot of this game. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm looking forward to competing in Raleigh. I'm looking forward to competing this weekend in the first open qualifier. I'm really excited for what this game, has to offer. I will say, without a doubt, this is the best release of a game that 343 has ever done. However, take that with a grain of salt. Couldn't let the show go by without making a dig at 343 because this is the first good release they've had. So, with that being said, because you got to think Halo 4 was like a half-baked game, wasn't that great. There were a lot of issues with it, gameplay-wise. With this game, or with Halo MCC, it didn't work for the first 3 days. With Halo 5, it, was a complete game, but half of its player base dropped off after the second day because there was just no redeeming qualities about it. I don't have that feeling about this game. They have more maps coming down the pipe. So we'll see what happens. I've been enjoying it thoroughly. I think you should give it a shot because it's free. It's a no-brainer. My full review, multiplayer review, I'll talk about it more next week. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a very good starting point, but I think 343 needs to not take a week, but take a few days, have a little bit of a party, celebrate this release because it has been really good, but they need to understand that this game was 6 years in the making. It's the highest budgeted video game of all time. The job and the effort and the work cannot be done yet. Like, they can't mail it in at this point.
This is only getting started.
Yeah, this is a starting point, and I want to put a lot of emphasis on that, because if in 6 months we have 2 new maps and a new battle pass with a little bit more content, that's just not enough. But before I cap it off, I'm finished talking about it. We can, put a bow on this. But I will say the one thing I want to focus on, especially with the HCS efforts, another big reason why Call of Duty players are feeling a little slighted is because this game released a month early, even though it's technically beta, with esports skins day one. Day one, with the proceeds going to not only the prize pool, but the players themselves and the organizations themselves. That is a huge feature that some people would just maybe ignore, or it might just be a passing over. No, like, that's huge for these organizations and these players for the longevity of the competitive scene.
No, definitely. And I agree with that, especially. I mean, that needs to be hammered home. I would really hope so, hammered home. But, and I think too, they're starting to have the right people put into positions that handle their esports scene, or at least with the right mindset, from what it seems like, that they want to see longevity. I sure should hope so, at least. But Mike, I think that's going to do it for our episode this week. I think we kind of nailed it all. But like I said, we'll have more of a quote unquote normal episode next week. But obviously, with a shadow drop of one of this year's biggest titles, at least the multiplayer component, the component that I think most, a large portion of the audience will be jumping into. When that shadow drops, you kind of got to pull an audible and focus everything on that. So, Mike, with that being said, where can people find you on the internet to talk about everything we talked about? Obviously, specifically a review in progress, or first impressions of a review, if you want to even call it that, of Halo Infinite's multiplayer. Where can people find you on the interwebs to talk about that?
You can find me on Twitter at TOYSXLDIER. That's Toy Soldier, and the second O is an X. Or you can find me on Twitch at MP_Toy Soldier.
And as always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travelis, on most internet platforms, including at Travelis_ on Twitter. That's TRAVLESS_. You could also find me streaming time to time on twitch.tv/Travelis_, same as Twitter. And if you want to play some video games with me, like Halo Infinite, you can do so on Xbox Live at just regular old Travelis. That's also on Steam as well, but you get the point. You could do, really, they're both sides of the same coin with this game, at least. But you can find me at just regular old Travelis. That's TRAVLESS, and we can play some Halo Infinite. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has been your newest episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and of course, PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversations around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us, rate, review us, all of that jazz. I tell you every week wherever you get a podcast at, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games alike, and our dope giveaways. And Mike, with that being said, that's going to do it for our episodes this week. Thank you everyone so much for listening, sharing, and being a part of our growing community. Game on, wash your hands, listen to the doctors, Black Lives Matter, and we will see you next week.